You're listening to an Anazao Ministries podcast.
Are you a millennial and allow the Cartoon Network, Nickelodeon, and Disney Channel themes, or various themes, live in your head rent-free? What makes 90s cartoons stick out from those from previous and future decades? Why are 90s cartoons good to reflect on, and why are they so gosh darn nostalgic? This is Systematic Geekology. We're the priests of the geeks, and these are the questions that we will be answering. And the we that I'm speaking of is myself, Nick Polk, and I am here with the notorious Pang. How are you, Pang?
Hello. I'm pretty good. Getting over being sick, but we're on the mend, so I'm excited.
Yeah, you were just talking, you don't need doctors. You just have your strength and
willpower.
Yeah, willpower.
And money, because I didn't go to the doctor, so I have my money.
So true. So don't go to the doctor, save your money. That is a official, recommendation from Systematic Geekology. Just kidding.
Yes.
not a recommendation. We're not liable. So before we jump into this and get in any more legal trouble, Pang, what have you been nerding out on lately?
Yeah, so lately I just watched this mafia anime on Crunchyroll, just kind of like to have background noise while I clean the house. It was called 91 Days, and it was pretty interesting. Like, very rare does an anime take place in America, you know?
Oh, interesting. So it's like literally the mafia.
Yeah, it's literally the mafia and like the Dons and all that stuff and like that like era. I don't know the era called, but they have like the old time talking with like the very like thick accents and like that prohibition, I guess, period.
Yeah, but, like that yeah.
Yeah. So I was shocked at how interested I got into it, but it's a great watch, I think. It's, even if you just want to see an anime in America, like, because that was what surprised me the most. I'm like, wow, this isn't in Italy? Okay.
So 91, what is it?
I think it was called 91 Days. You know how like you just kind of like play an anime and you don't really like pay attention to the names of it or anything like that? Yeah, it's 91 Days. I just checked.
Okay. I'm going to check it out because I just recently acquired my sister's Crunchyroll password. So.
Ooh, I like it.
So speaking of Japanese related content, you and your hubby went to Japan on a trip. So tell the listeners a little bit about some highlights from your Japan trip.
Gosh, it really is the land of anime and everything magical. Probably one of the highlights, we did a maid cafe just because we had to. We had to do it. They called me Hime-sama, which means princess, as I am. They knelt down on the ground to take my order and bowed to me. Yes. And I had a bell whenever I was ready for them to come and to summon them and stuff. It was the cringiest thing of my whole entire life. I was so cringe. We did the muy, muy delicious and made everything. Oh, it was so cringy, but I had to do it. I had to think if I saw it in an anime, I was either going to eat it or do it. And so when we passed by a maid cafe, I had to do it. But it was a lot of fun. A lot of fun exploring the temples and all that. Just a great time.
All your pictures from eating all the food, which I've heard Japanese food is just elite among international cuisine.
I lost 2 pounds. So and I knew going on other missions trips like to South America and whatnot, food overseas is just cleaner and better for you. And I know being in the culinary industry, the horrors of the American food, processing.
Right.
But I lost 2 pounds and I ate like a queen, like a princess Hime-sama I am. Dang it. So it's fine though. It definitely makes you more mindful coming back to America and eating cupcakes and whatnots.
Yeah, I I love soba noodles and the way that it's served where you get the cold noodles and you dip them in the sauce and eat them. And I just want to go to Japan and have clean, delicious soba noodles in the Japanese homeland,
Right. There was a place in Kyoto. And that's the thing with Japan. We were there for 2 weeks and we did so much, but we could go another 2 weeks and do completely different things and still not do what all Japan has to offer. But it was one of those things where it goes down the waterfall and you grab the noodles as it passes you.
What?
But we ended up not doing it because with Japan, everything is reservation. And so you have to like literally reserve stuff months in advance to try and get in. So just to, at least with food wise, we did a few like theme cafes and whatnot. But like to try and get into everything we wanted to eat would have been too much waiting around and I couldn't slow down for it. But that was one thing on the list that I did not get to do that. It would have been nice.
Yeah. I think the one thing that I definitely need to try is just go to a great sushi place where the chef just curates the meal for you and just pay an ungodly amount of money to eat sushi.
That's what we did with Kobe beef. We went to Kobe and ate Kobe beef. That was our flex.
Gosh.
But I like American sushi, so I wasn't about to go and eat Japanese sushi.
Oh,
and
interesting.
then but plus like Hubs and I were trying for a kid, and so I never know like if I might be with child or not until like like in that like 2-3 week wait. And so I would have tried sushi, but then I was like, what if I'm at the very beginning stages? And so then I couldn't get that out my mind because I wouldn't have mind trying 1 or 2 pieces even if I didn't like it, like I was going to eat it. But so that was a big reason why I was like, okay, I'm not even going to try sushi just in case. I'm overly cautious.
Look at you. Already taking care of your baby, your future baby.
Yeah, whenever it wants to come, actually, I'm ready for it because I'm so tired of like the month to month, man. Like you wouldn't know. I was like, you know what I mean? But no,
Yeah.
you would not know.
I don't know that part.
It's like, are we with child this month? No. Okay, we'll try next month. But that's probably TMI for the listeners. Or you might want to know more about my personal life. Who knows?
There you go, people. Japan and birthing cycles,
Yeah, I'm an open book.
Also an open book. And before we get down into a place where listeners start questioning what we're here talking about, I'll just say that this isn't something I've been recently nerding out on, but past episodes I've been kind of nerding up on the same thing. But keeping it Japanese related, Baby Metal is this weird Japanese pop metal band, and they're epic. They got super popular, and they've toured with like Metallica, and I think Stephen Colbert had them on his late night show. So anyway, listen to the song "Give Me Chocolate." So good. So that's what we got, people. We got things we're nerding out on, a little bit about Japanese culture from Pang and her hubby's trip. So we are going to transition to 90s cartoons. And that's what they call a sweet transition in the podcasting.
Right. This was actually a listener's pick. So this episode we're doing for you listeners. And I'm very excited.
Yeah, this is great. When Pang and I kind of texted back and forth, we talked about which cartoons we were going to pick, and two of our picks were so we're going to do 4 picks, 4 cartoons that we're going to talk about to keep us on track because there's so many. But we each picked one, and then we talked about the next ones we were going to pick, and our second choices were between the same cartoons.
Yes.
And so before we reveal what those are to you listeners, we're just going to talk about our experience with growing up watching cartoons, maybe traditions with family, if we have any memories, where it all began. So Pang, how did you get started with cartoons and how did it keep going?
Yeah. So growing up, I only had Nickelodeon. We had basic cable because we were poor. So I never had Disney or Cartoon Network until I was probably like in middle school, high school. So like growing up literally in the 90s because we are 90s babies. And I'm very proud. It was only Nickelodeon and it was channel 23. I remember it to this day.
I love that.
Like that was just the channel you went to. And it's such a nostalgia thing. Like I didn't know about anime at this time. So I would even say 90s cartoon is the gateway to my anime obsession.
Same.
And I've always loved watching TV. Like I never really got into music. I never really got into like the girly stuff like my sister. I never got into like the NSYNC or Backstreet Boys like other like kids my age did. It was always cartoons. That was how my parents got me to do anything. If I had to clean my room, like they would take away Nickelodeon. So I would even say Nickelodeon helped raise me a little bit.
No, I feel that, like it's very similar to my experience because I didn't really get into anything as far as cultural stuff until middle school, which was punk music was kind of my individualized kind of cultural transformative moment in my adolescence. But I also just loved cartoons and TV. The only channel I really didn't have was Disney, and I lived in Florida, which was kind of strange. But I had Cartoon Network, Nickelodeon, and then Fox Kids when it was a thing, and Kids WB on Saturday mornings because they would do like Pokemon,
I
which I
remember
really loved.
WB, Channel 25.
Channel 25.
25.
The only one I remember, I think, in our was Cartoon Network was Channel 11. And then I remember Animal Planet 44 because I think the double digits kind of helped. But I don't remember what channel the other stuff was on. But yeah, kind of like you were talking about, I watched Cartoon Network. And then when Toonami came out, I had no idea that there was even a difference between like American cartoons and Japanese cartoons. I was just like, oh, Dragon Ball Z or Rurouni Kenshin, like these were just really sick action cartoons, and I loved them and watched them all the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's always just amazing how, like, when I just think of like cartoons, I can't think of a beginning. I can't think of where it all started or what like show started at all when I think of the 90s cartoons. Like they've always been there.
Yeah.
Do you remember your earliest cartoon or like your earliest memory with cartoons?
Yeah, I think PBS was probably my earliest stuff, and not necessarily cartoons, but I'm just trying to think of like early stuff like Dragon Tales, and I'm trying to think of other 90s ones. The Reading with the Lions. There was like a Siamese cat one. I can't remember. But I think those were all like educational ones. And then eventually, I just remember watching Cartoon Network and watching like Dexter's Laboratory and Powerpuff Girls and stuff like that. And that was really it, where we all had TVs in each of our individual rooms. And so I was able to kind of sneak my TV on at night and keep the volume low. And so that's where I was able to watch Toonami. And even when Adult Swim on Cartoon Network became a thing, and started watching Adult Swim and all that stuff.
I remember my interaction with Adult Swim in middle school. I was hooked. That's where I first encountered Inuyasha at
Oh yeah,
my first love. But we're getting a little off topic.
Yeah. Well, that's what we're doing. Just
yeah.
talking about our memories, because we are going to talk about these 4 cartoons. But this is, I feel like, I'm sure that if we talked and heard from other people, their experiences would be similar, where they're like, I don't remember what cartoons, I just remember them being there, Saturday morning, cereal, that sort of thing. And they'd probably even talk about the same ones, whether it's Doug or Rugrats or, even some things on Toonami like Inuyasha and Dragon Ball Z. But we'll talk about our 4 ones here. So we're going to talk about 4. So 2 for me, 2 for Pang. DBZ and Rugrats are my 2 focus, and Hey Arnold and Rocket Power are the ones that Pang are going to focus. So like I said, we're going to reference a bunch of other 90s cartoons, but there's just way too many, and these 4 cartoons will keep us on track. So Pang, let's talk Hey Arnold. Tell me why you picked it. Tell me why you love Hey Arnold. All that good stuff.
So I think Hey Arnold was my sister's favorite, my older sister. And so you know how hierarchy goes in the house, like she gets to watch what she wants to watch, but I loved it as well. So I feel like that's such an ingrained cartoon, because that's what we like always watch together. And I mean, who doesn't love Helga and Arnold's relationship? You know what I mean? I've always been, since my very core, I've always talked about the romance, and I've always wanted Helga to get her shot, So that episode, whenever they were doing the Shakespeare and she like cut down that competition, I was like, you get your man, girl, you get your man, like you do what you gotta do.
It's just a fun time. Kissing spot, right? That's what she's going for, so she can kiss him in the play. Yes.
Yep, and it's a long one. Like I was able to quote like Shakespeare's lines because of that episode.
Really?
Like, because that's what they would do. And what I watched that episode so many times because I was that giddy little, like, I was like, oh my gosh, they kissed. But and even when preparing for this episode, I was like thinking, because I don't even know if I ever watched an ending to it. Like when you think of 90s cartoons, you don't really think of them ending. They just
Yeah.
kind of go off there's no like wrap up. Like it's not like he went off to college or anything like that. So now I'm like very curious, like how it might have ended. I might have to do some after show research.
Yeah, I know they had like a movie that came out
I
probably
remember
when we were
watching the
in.
movie.
Yeah, I think they even came out with one through Hulu, maybe not like maybe 5 or 6 years ago or something like that.
Oh, I didn't see that one. I've always been afraid to like Google the results because in my head they ended up together. You know, like I created this fake narrative, like how it ended. And so I'm like, I'm completely content with that being in the childhood and they're ending up together. And of course, Phoebe, I felt like I was more of a Phoebe in that character with like the Asian descent with the black hair and she was
Mm.
nerdy. I was like, yep. I was like, that's me.
Man, and I love, just focusing on like the romance because I feel like a lot of 90s cartoons had those like subtle, they're like, oh, they're in fourth grade and they're in love, or like there's a secret love, or, like I think of, According to Ginger, right? Is that the right one? Yeah, on Nickelodeon. Do you know what I'm talking
As
about?
Told by Ginger. Yeah,
There you
As
go.
Told by Ginger. That was another favorite.
And just like I feel like a lot of people would probably say this too, is that like these romances like kind of sparked as we're transitioning into puberty and stuff, just learning about the opposite sex or people we're attracted to, and we're like, oh man, like I want that. I remember watching Hey Arnold and being like, I hope that there's a girl that has a secret shrine for me and secretly hates me,
Mhm.
but or hates me in public, but actually likes me if it was a crush or something.
Right.
And just having those little childhood hopes, like, oh, it's just like TV or whatever.
Mhm, mhm.
Yeah.
It's so fun. And then the friendship in A. Hey Arnold. You always want to have like friendships, and even the relationship like with his grandparents. And he has
Oh
a
yeah.
tragic backstory, but he has this makeshift family in the boarding house. And then I even had the realization because my husband and I we rent rooms to other roommates and stuff, so we do a lot of like co-housing. I'm like,
Yeah.
it's just like Hey Arnold. I'm living a TV life. It's so cute.
Man, I
But
forgot that they had a boarding house. Yeah.
yeah, and so like the grandma would feed everyone, and there's this like all, and you got to go into like the Mr. Wynn. Remember the episode of the Christmas time, and Mr. Wynn needed to find his daughter, and that's
Yeah.
just like it got some serious like deep stuff that really like marked you. It wasn't just all laughing games with Hey Arnold. We covered some deep stuff.
Man, one of the things too I think of, obviously you got Arnold and Gerald being best friends, but I remember Harold just, being able to like befriend bullies. I think there's an episode where like Wolfgang, one of the notorious bullies, is like bullying Arnold and the fourth graders. He's a sixth grader, and Hey Arnold learns that he is like bad at school, and Hey Arnold and Arnold secretly tutors him, and they become like friends. And you're like, this is so
Mm-hmm.
sweet. This kid is bullied, and there's like this bridge built, and how like. And then, like you said, there's just this community and friendship that those cartoons had. I think they navigated really well between dealing with hardships, but also being kind and
Right.
working together.
Just the other day, like I made the chant because we were walking downtown Charleston and there was like a stoop. And my husband said something about like the porch or something like that. I'm like, stoop kid's gonna leave a stoop. Stoop kid. Like it's like those ingrained memories that will never go
Absolutely.
away. Like you said, it lives rent free in my head.
Yeah. I can even see the newspaper where it's like stoop kid finally leaves stoop or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So funny.
So good. So I'm going to go to another Nickelodeon show, Rugrats, which also focuses on friendship and close family and stuff like that. Nickelodeon, very similar. And I feel like Helga and Angelica are kind of built from the same stuff, where you've got kind of like preppy, blonde girls who come from maybe more affluent families. I remember Angelica's mom being like the businesswoman with all like the new cell phone, and they always had the latest toys. And
Mm-hmm.
there was Cynthia, and I remember one of the earliest memories seeing the Rugrats movie, which was probably one of the earliest cartoon movies I think I ever saw, like in theaters. And that was actually the first movie that I cried in, because I think that it so in the movie there is Tommy and Chucky and all these people, and Tommy has a new baby brother, Dill, who's coming, and it kind of navigates the relationship between like what happens when family grows and the firstborn loses that spotlight. And I'm a firstborn kid, and so I had a little brother too. And so just there is just lots of fighting and adventure. And I remember there's a part where Tommy like rejects his brother in it, and it made me cry, as a little kid. And I think these memories of just like of just even these friends working together and navigating relationships. As a kid, you can't really articulate it well, but it's formative in how you're developing emotionally and seeing that externalized in people like Helga and Phoebe and Gerald and Arnold, and then of course Tommy and Chucky, Phil and Lil, all that good stuff.
Yeah. I just loved all the adventures they went on, and like, isn't it crazy you think about the Rugrat parents being so old?
Yeah.
And like, if I were to watch it right now, I would probably be technically the same age or if not older than the parents being 31, but they just are portrayed so dang old.
They look
and
like
that's mind-blowing to me.
They look like they're in their mid-40s.
I know. And I'm like, why'd you do that to them, guys? But then they're just so oblivious. Like, they're like, oh, they're just playing the whole time.
They're not.
They're literally going on adventures, guys. Like, watch your kids.
They do. They end up like, they do. They end up going like off track. They get lost in cities. Rugrats in Paris is, I think, one of the movies, right, where they're in Paris and all that good stuff. And then the Rugrats movie is about them getting lost. I think they like fall off like the interstate, right? And they like are in their Reptar wagon and they end up in the woods. Yeah.
But it's all, I think any show that just kind of has like those bonds is always a good show, because, and like, if you think about it, we're like kids watching babies. How is that so engaging to us? Like, why are we so invested in this? Like, it's not like but nowadays you have kids the same age as us, and they're watching like those Vampire Diaries and all the like other crazy whatnots, and they're just way more mature than I will ever be. We're here watching babies.
It's so weird to think about, like, like we were watching things as simple as like Rugrats and even Hey Arnold, about a kid going to school in 4th grade. There's not anything really super fantastical about either shows. You get some imaginary stuff. Like I remember Tommy does like a reenactment of like the Exodus, where he plays Moses and they're trying to escape the Pharaoh, which is Angelica. And so it's very fantastical, and he splits the Red Sea and stuff like that, and leads, his people, which is just Phil, Lil, and Chucky. But for the most part, it's like you said, more shows I feel like handle things differently. I don't know, like, because I feel like there are some shows like early 2010s Cartoon Network was a little more chaotic, like with Adventure Time and Regular Show. But I don't really know a lot of 2020. I don't know any of the 2020s cartoons,
I'm trying to think. I don't think I know too much either.
We're old,
gosh,
dude.
The Regular Show, though, we could do a whole podcast just on that one. That was probably one of my favorite cartoons.
I love Regular Show. I went to a camp. I worked at a camp in college, and my nickname was Pops because I loved Regular Show so much. And so
I like it.
Yeah,
I like it. But gosh, you mentioned when you said DBZ, I didn't even think about DBZ with the 90s, because in my head, that's just, when I think 90s cartoon, because I only grew up with Nickelodeon, I automatically think of Nicktoons. But you're right, DBZ was 90s cartoons.
I think like the first Dragon Ball Z season was 89, but from then on, 90s through 96, and then of course went to GT and stopped after that. But it was just a huge, Toonami was just a huge, I remember watching, I think how I got introduced to Dragon Ball Z was, I think I had like a VHS tape of, do you remember like the Scooby-Doo movies, like Scooby on Zombie Island? Do you remember that one? Yeah. And I think it had a preview for the Cell saga for Dragon Ball Z. And then I somehow, of course, I stumbled upon it later on Toonami. And yeah, just so good.
That's cool. I remember starting off with Dragon Ball, but Dragon Ball came a little bit later than DBZ because that was almost like a sequel, right? I mean, a prequel to Dragon Ball Z.
No, Dragon Ball started in the 80s first, and then Dragon
did
Ball
it?
Z. Uh-huh.
Okay, I wasn't sure. I'm not diverse in that fandom as well. I've watched quite a bit of it, obviously in the wrong order, but
Well, and it's funny
fun.
because I didn't even know Dragon Ball was a thing until I finished, I think, the Buu saga. And then I think Dragon Ball started becoming more available as anime started becoming more dubbed and available in the US and less pirated. You know, and I think that, and you can kind of talk about this too, and how maybe talk about how the cartoon, like 90s cartoons, got you into anime as well, because that was similar with me, where Dragon Ball Z was like the first world building show that I actually got super into. And now I'm like a nerd and I'm super into Lord of the Rings and the whole world building and Harry Potter and all these things. And I look at like, oh, how does the magic work? Where do these people come from? Like, how's the world created? And I was doing that because the Dragon Ball Z universe is just so huge. But at the time, I wouldn't have articulated it that way. I was just watching awesome dudes go Super Saiyan and fight aliens and go to different planets and stuff like that. And it shaped my taste in cartoons and action. And of course, I started getting into, I'm trying to think some of the bigger animes that were available in Toonami.
Prince of Tennis, Naruto.
Yeah, there we go. More obscure. I don't know.
Zatch
Which one's that one? Go ahead, Ken.
Zatch Bell, the one with like the little demon child.
Oh, I don't even know that one.
Oh, well, it's there. So real quick, back to DBZ, because I have a question. Yeah. How the heck did Bulma end up with Vegeta? Was that ever explained? Because I feel like it was just like, boom, they're together.
That was pretty much it. There was a part where Vegeta, I think it's after the Namek saga, they come back and I think Vegeta is, decided to become good and, by Goku and other his friend. And I think that he's just ends up with Bulma. And
how? Because I was rooting for Yamcha.
Right.
And I'm still upset.
And it starts off like if Dragon Ball, I mean, their romance starts in the first because they're both trying to go find the Dragon Ball so they can find a boyfriend and girlfriend. They don't get their wish, but they find each other.
I know, it was the perfect romance. But no, she's with Vegeta.
Which you know Trunks, and Trunks is like probably one of my all-time favorites.
I do love me some Trunks.
Yeah. Sword Trunks, really cool. And then, of course, Kid Trunks and him and Goten doing fusion and becoming Gotenks, Super Saiyan 3, fighting Buu. Just peak nostalgia. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've watched all that. I haven't watched a lot of the new DBZ stuff.
I've seen all of the first, like the first part of Dragon Ball Super, and it's really good. But there's like some other stuff where I think the latest season I have not caught up on, and I need to. But now I didn't have access to stuff, so now I have a Crunchyroll password. So now that's going to have to change. Yeah,
that's exciting. Yeah, DBZ is one of the few ones. One Piece is another one where, like, from the 90s, it's still going strong. Yeah, like us, we're from the 90s and we're still going strong.
So freaking true, dude.
We are anime and
cartoons. We are anime and cartoons. You're welcome.
I love it. Yeah, and so if you are also a 90s baby listening to this, you are anime and cartoons. And yeah, that's it. We can just. I'm just kidding. We're not ending it there, but it would have been funny.
Well, one of the things that me and Peng were texting about was that we were like, oh, Peng said, I'm deciding between Rugrats and Rocket Power. And I was like, oh, me too. And so I decided to pick Rugrats, and Peng's going to talk about Rocket Power. But I wanted to be Otto. Like, me and my friends did the woogity stuff. Like, I learned how to skimboard it. So good. Right.
See, I grew up roller skating, so there was like a local roller skate rink we would go to on Saturdays in my small town. And so I always wanted to surf too. And so just where is that? Is that in where does it take place? Now that I think about Rocket Power, do you know like where they're located?
I want to say it's somewhere in California.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, California. But it was just, they would do all the stuff you would hope to do as a kid, especially me being a kid from a small town. They would roller skate, they would play street hockey, ice hockey, surf, go on like fun adventures. They're not like so much like Rugrats, but they would still do like fun whatnot and get into trouble and
Right.
pick on the older kids and just give them a hard time. And so, me having an older sibling, who doesn't love giving the older sibling a hard time?
Yeah. Having like Reggie and Otto be siblings is so good because, just giving like the girls and guys kind of having a different archetype of a kid to look up to and want to be like. And then also they're both like have this dynamic where they're both kind of fighting to be the best, and both of them beat each other like multiple times. And then of course you've got Squid and who's the film guy? Twister, right?
Twister. Gosh, I love
Twister.
Squid. And then the big, I can't think of his name, but like the big kind of uncle like guy who's like kind of fat that makes you think of the like guy who sings Over the Rainbow.
Yeah.
He's there. And then the single dad, he was just such a cool dad.
The coolest.
Like, he was the coolest dad ever. And I like that he always flirted with the cop because, of course, anything romance is going to stick out to me.
Right.
And even when the kids got into trouble and like did stuff they weren't supposed to do, like he got mad at an appropriate level, but like he was just like, you guys, y'all are still good kids. And so me growing up, and if I did one little thing wrong, that's not even a big deal. I would just get hounded about everything. So like just kind of like seeing like a healthy family dynamic in some of these 90s cartoons was kind of refreshing, and I almost longed for that lifestyle because being in a small town, not having a lot of freedom, kind of having parents micromanage you down your throat, like cartoons can be a big escape from reality for a lot of people, which is why I think I kind of developed that addiction to always wanting to watch cartoons because you don't think about your own life.
Man, I didn't even think about that, but even all the ones we've talked about with Arnold's family and the Rugrats families, even the adults, and like you said, there's just these emotions that happen and they always end up communicating and reconciling, even if there's like a big fight or something like that. And it, like you said, it kind of modeled for us what healthy family dynamics could look like when maybe there are times for a lot of us where that wasn't happening. And maybe Cartoon Network and Nickelodeon were part of the reason why so many millennials are in therapy right now, because we just were like, we recognized the good stuff and we wanted it. And we did. Some of us didn't have it. Yeah.
I wonder if, because just seeing, not my friends, of course, I would never talk about my friends, other people, but like millennials with kids nowadays, I feel like they're just babying the kids so dang much. So I'm wondering if it's just kind of one of those things because of the way we grew up. And I feel like in a strict household, so they kind of was like, well, I'm going to give my kids everything I didn't have. And then like they just open the floodgate and whatnot, because I mean, I never saw a healthy marriage until I met my in-laws, like my husband's parents and whatnot. So I just wonder how much even 90s cartoons has affected us, not even to the day for a nostalgic reason, but how that's going to bring up the next generation when they watch their 2020 cartoons.
Yeah, it is interesting because I don't know because I've just talked to people, because Kelly and I don't have kids, but talking to elder millennials, to people our age, is that, everyone's kind of talked about like helicopter parenting is just kind of the norm now. Like if you go to a birthday party or take your kid to a birthday party, like every parent is there. And I remember,
you don't drop them off anymore.
Right. It's so weird. Like even like my family, like we were dropped off places, and like even I had lots of freedom where even when I was 16, like I got the car and I was able to kind of go where I wanted as long as I let my mom know. And I don't know if that's really as much of a thing anymore.
Well, now I feel like people are so scared, and technology kind of makes a hindrance too, because now you can even just put an AirTag on your kid, and yeah, you can drop them off, but you still have, I guess, the peace of mind. Because if I have kids, I'm definitely going to have AirTags in their underwear or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I get it. And with like bad things have always happened, but with social media and the news, we are now more aware of bad things happening. So it's just more darkness being brought to the light, which makes us more afraid, which makes us more, I feel like, overcompensate. And it's working. Like the last thing I would want is my kid getting abducted from a buggy if my back is turned for 2 seconds while grocery shopping.
Yeah.
Like it's real scenarios.
Yeah. And I wonder if, just if that's part of what sets the 90s cartoons apart from maybe stuff post 20, or, post 2010, is that I've heard a lot of people talk about like when the internet was seen in a really positive light was late 90s, like through mid to late 2000, where the internet, there was some sketchy stuff that happened, just the internet existed, but there wasn't we didn't have smartphones where the internet was literally right here where we could see all the tragedy and world things happening right in the palm of our hand at every second. But I wonder if that's part of what sets it up to even in the cartoons from the 60s, 70s, and 80s, and then, of course, post 2010s, where we're in this weird tension of like, okay, technology has progressed in such a way that has made life more convenient. Some type of connection has happened. Creativity is more widespread, but the easy access to panic and tragedy isn't quite there.
And now you can find anything to justify your way of thinking.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
So like whether it's in any scenario, like you can have the most obscure thought ever. You can Google that phrase and find an article or some kind of science fact or something to prove you right or to back you up. So information is almost too abundant and too manipulative at this point, which, I mean, it's interesting to see now. I've never really thought about today's cartoons. I know Bluey.
Oh, yeah, which I've heard is excellent.
Beautiful Bluey. But then even then, I feel like that's more like kids, like kiddie, because we talked about 90s cartoons. We didn't go into like the super like kiddie ones, like, Backyardigans and all that stuff. Like, I mean, there's levels. So I don't really know what the, I guess, elementary kids are watching. I know what the babies are watching because of my friends and going over to their houses, but not the elementary kids per se. Actually, I think a lot of them are doing YouTube videos now. YouTube kids.
That's what I've heard as well. Like even my little nephews, they watch some. I'm trying to think of shows they watch. They like there's Mickey Mouse Clubhouse, which is still going, with different renditions from Disney Channel. But a lot of it is just YouTube videos, monster trucks, kids playing with toys, that sort of thing, which is interesting.
Dude, if I get blessed with a child, they will be a YouTube. I'm just going to film them playing with, I'm like, come on, college friend right here. Maybe someone will watch you play with your dolls. Maybe not. Don't cancel me, guys. I don't know if I'm going to do that. I'm not even with child yet, okay? This is just me thinking.
Here's the thing. Everybody, I've heard literally every parent who says before they're a parent, they're like, I would never let my kid have an iPad. And almost all my friends who have kids, they all have access to iPads because you know what? Parents want quiet moments and they want their kids to enjoy stuff. And we have TV and stuff, like whatever.
Yeah, no, the TV babysat me for sure.
It's the same
So
thing.
I wouldn't give them my phone. I would go a step further because literally, like, I was just with my sister last week and Carrie went with her kids, and they always like, can I hold your phone? Can I hold your phone? I want to watch video and show on your phone. I'm like, because they know you always have the phone on them.
Mm-hmm.
And so they just pitch a fit. But I'm like, if they have their own iPad and we happen to leave the iPad at home, like hopefully cognitively it's like, no, we don't have this. Don't be a brat. But because they knew they had the phone, it's like, no, blah, blah, blah. Well, I don't know. It's easy to talk about not being a parent. I mean, talk about parenting when you're not a parent.
Yeah. So so just talking about parenting, ideal parenting. So if you want parenting advice, come to Peng and I directly. So we'll tell you how to parent your children. Yeah.
I'm a plethora of knowledge on this and 90s cartoons.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Parenting and 90s cartoons. That's our wheelhouse right there.
Absolutely.
New offshoot podcast. I don't know. We'll call it You Dumb Babies after Angelica. And there we go.
Oh, yeah. And then we'll eat cookies too, chocolate chip cookies.
We'll be super condescending as well.
Gosh, Reptar, they ate something. I always think about like food, like they ate something with Reptar. What was it? Was it a chocolate? I think it was chocolate in the shape of Reptars.
It was the Reptar bars.
Yeah, and I always thought they looked so good, and I've always wanted one. Reptar bars.
Because I think that the babies always fought to get them, and I think that Angelica's parents prevented her from having chocolate bars. And I think there's an episode where she gets a hold of them and she just annihilates them and it gets like a crazy sugar high. Yeah, I think
almost like Squidward when he had his first Krabby Patty.
Yeah,
that was a nice. I purposely didn't choose SpongeBob because I knew that would have dominated the whole conversation. Because SpongeBob is his own episode by itself.
It literally is. Everybody, SpongeBob is still affecting kids. You know, it's still going strong. It started in '99, and they're still coming out with new stuff now, 25 years later, 24 years. Mm-hmm. Crazy.
It's beautiful. It's a beautiful thing. My little sister loved SpongeBob so much, and so I have seen all the like beginning episodes at least 3 times each.
Absolutely.
Favorite episode is the Rip the Pants episode.
So good. The music in that, come on. You can't, Rip My Pants song, eternal classic.
So good. So good.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, is there any other 90s shows that you want to just like quick 2 seconds give a shout out to?
Oh, I like this. I think Dexter's Lab was a great one that I love. Foster's Home for Imaginary Kids or Imaginary Friends. Yeah. I'll do one more Nickelodeon one because I feel like Cartoon Network. I was more of a Cartoon Network kid that dabbled in Nickelodeon. Jimmy Neutron and Danny Phantom. Loved those cartoons.
He was just 14. I can still rap that song.
Oh, let's go, dude.
I will not. Maybe that would be like a YouTube special, but I'll like randomly like rap that song sometimes. But mine would be Cat Dog, Alone in the World with a Little Cat Dog. Such a good one. Angry Beavers, Doug, like
Doug
with the little the drawings is so like purposely bad, but why did I love it so much?
It's so good. It's so bad. But when he's walking on the string and it's like shit, the animation shaking. Yeah, dude, no doubt.
Oh man. 90s cartoons is a lifestyle. And now this is not a plug. We are not sponsored, but you can sponsor us. But I'm pretty sure HBO Max has all like the Nicktoons and whatnot. Because I remember when I first got it, I remember watching a lot of Hey Arnold like in the background.
Okay.
So I'm not sure if it has all of them or if it's maybe I'm on drugs from all the cold medicine I've consumed and I'm remembering this completely wrong. But 90% sure. The Max has like a lot of Nicktoons you can go watch.
Freak yeah. Well, it's interesting too because Avatar: The Last Airbender is a big one too, which could be its own episode. That's like on every streaming service. I feel like it's on Amazon, Netflix, Paramount, HBO. Like that's a show that's amazing.
Arguably Nickelodeon's best work.
Absolutely.
I will argue that.
Yeah,
it's beautiful.
So beautiful, amazing. I think I think it's obvious that we think that these things are worth revisiting. Why do we think that they're worth engaging and maybe even worth sharing with the next generation?
Well, kind of just talking about like that family aspect and whatnot, and not to get too, everyone has their own opinions, but just the way how some medias are being portrayed. Like I said, a lot of teenagers are now watching Vampire Diaries or that like, just older stuff I would never even want to like put my kids through. So when I have kids, I'm going to be teaching them the beauty of 90s cartoon and the wholesome of 90s cartoons. I just want my kids to be a kid. And I feel like 90s cartoon is very much like kids and you know what I mean? But not, totally. I feel it's valuable. And then like just to share a little bit of like, this is what mom grew up with. This is what dad grew up with. And then what's even crazier is all my high school students, they have like Rugrat t-shirts, Nickelodeon, like they all made a comeback, which is mind blowing to me.
Yeah.
Like just the other day in Walmart, I saw someone had a Reptar t-shirt. Yeah. So Rugrats is making a comeback with a few, I guess, things, but who knows? By the time I have kids, something new is going to be going on. Maybe it went out and then it will come back all over again. But I'm definitely going to share it just because it's a piece of my childhood. I want to share it with my child.
Dude, it's so, like you said, I just love that sharing part is so huge. My nephews love Pokemon now, and it's the Indigo League. And so when we were on vacation, we watched a couple episodes of Pokemon, and they just started at the beginning. So when Ash when he evolves Metapod into Butterfree and fights, and ends up fighting Brock at the Pewter City Gym. Like, I had those on VHS and rewatched those all the time. And so just the fact that I'm like feeling nostalgic, enjoying it now, and then my nephew who's enjoying it at 4 years old, it's just like, it's harmless, it's fun, it's very kid like oriented, and like it also makes me feel like me being a 30-year-old man watching Pokemon is still valid, you know, because it's for family.
That's how I feel with Bluey. Like every time I get a hold of my niece, I'm like, "Do you want to watch some Bluey? The new season just came out."
And then I'm sure, has she ever rejected it and then you feel sad?
No, she's still a baby. She cannot talk and has no free will. So I'm solid.
Yeah, unfortunately, my nephew has free will, and I'm like, "You want to watch Pokemon?" And he's like, "No," and my heart gets a little sad. But you know,
it's like Uncle Nick. That's when bribery comes in.
That's true. I need to utilize that more. Maybe like heroin or something. You know, just get them started young. Yeah.
I mean, that is a parenting tip from Nick and not from me. Okay, guys.
Yeah, hard drugs are probably one of the best tools in your parenting tool belt there.
The only rock I'm going to give my kid is rock candy. Okay, so I'll be a good parent, guys. Do not pre-call DSS on us.
Well played with the rock candy. Okay, so you know, we love 90s cartoons. We think they're worth sharing. Stay away from the hard drugs. Just give your kids 90s cartoons. That's what.
And if you're dying, you might want to go to the doctor. So don't not go to the doctor and then blame us.
Very true. Very true.
That's all of our disclaimers for this episode.
Boom. So let's transition to our recommendations. Peng, you got any recommendations before we sign off here?
Yeah, so I'm pulling up my Netflix right now. I don't usually dabble in the Netflix, but there is a series I've been watching today. It is called Romantic Killer. So that might be something. It's a fluffy little rom-com if you guys want something light to listen to. Yeah, I recommend that.
I like it. I am also going to recommend a Netflix show. The latest season of The Witcher is on. The Witcher is a mess of a show. It's so crazy timeline-wise and fun. But if you love fantasy and love action and world building, go for it. It's super fun. And I love Geralt of Rivia. So there you go. So listeners, you can go to Systematic Geekology. You can find us on YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, where we do lots of other stuff. On YouTube, we're kind of doing a lot more there. We have a Discord if you want to come hang out with us. You know, we can swap parenting tips and 90s cartoons recommendations.
Please give us parenting tips, okay? Guys, we're not experts. We don't even have the kids yet.
Yeah, it's true. You know, I just need parenting advice for me because I'm still a child, you know?
There you go. Yeah. Do you want to be Nick's parent is what he just asked.
Oh, I could totally use some parenting. So yeah, we'll get some adoption papers set up.
Done. And you can claim on one of your taxes for a tax break. It's win all around.
Win all around. So yeah, hang out with us on the internet for all the good nerdy stuff. And just remember, until next time, we are all a chosen people, a geekdom of Creek.
Bye-bye.
This was an Anazao Ministries podcast. If you enjoyed this show and would like to learn more about our network, be sure to check out the Anazao Ministries podcast network.